Spread the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? Geoff Mosher, Adam Caplan here for a season finale preview. The Eagles will play the New York Giants at 4:25 on Sunday in Week 18. And Adam, guess what? It actually means something. I can't believe
Holy
it
smokes.
actually means something more for the Eagles than the Giants. That's crazy.
Can't make that up. That's like the craziness. You look at the Week 18 schedule. That's the one made no sense to me because 2 weeks ago, like we all did, we thought the Eagles would be resting most of their starters or playing very little Week 18. Get a look at the Trey Sermons of the world and maybe Ian Book. No, that won't be happening.
No, that will not be happening. Now, we might be getting a look at a lot of Giants backups. We'll talk about that. But you know what?
We'll talk about that.
Most people have been looking at Giants backups all year. That's how hurt they were. So, especially at wide receiver and in the secondary. So it'll be really interesting to see what the Giants do strategically out there. We'll get into that. Obviously, a lot is on the line with this game. The NFC East Championship is on the line, potentially, depending on what Dallas does. And of course, the number one seed in the NFC, which ordinarily gets you a bye. That's what the Eagles are trying to get. We'll see if anything changes with the schedule. But as we go right now, we're going off the fact that this is what the Eagles are trying to get. And so that makes this game really big. We're going to preview it even more on Sunday. Our typical pregame show will begin at its typical time at 10 a.m. Till noon. Myself, Adam, Greg Cosell, former Eagles wide receiver Jason Avant will be back. We had that unfortunate flight cancellation coming back from Arizona last week and couldn't make the show. But alas, no Michigan football this weekend. So Jason will be just fine to make it to the pregame show. And if you caught any bit of Q&A this past week, we've gotten some feedback that it's one of the best ever. Not because of any ranting or raving or screaming. This is not, a Fox Sports show, right? This is this is just really good analysis. But those two guys, I thought, passionately, but also fairly objectively, even though and somewhat biasedly because they're both Eagles, they really did an excellent job of diagnosing where they felt things were wrong. Not just Adam with the game, but how this season is kind of ending for the team and what that means going forward for them in the playoffs. It was a really good episode.
You got to hear them just encapsulate the issues with the coverages in terms of playing man coverage. And, you've heard me 2 games ago against Dallas. What really bothered me was how off coverage they play. Even in man, they give up too much room. And Q just nailed it. Mm-hmm. He explained it better than I did as a former safety. I just thought, and Jason, as I'm sure, I just thought it was perfect the way they explained it.
Yep.
And this is the one issue that I have. We'll get into their defense later in the show, and we'll explain to you what kind of other teams, how they see them playing it. But one thing to remember, though, James Bradbury, the reason why the Giants didn't want him back is because he's not a man cover corner. And I don't know that he likes to press. So that's one thing that we have to look at. But the bottom line is they're giving up. Their guys are right. They're giving up too much free access. And when you play a better team, the playoffs, the Niners they're so skilled. They're so skilled now at the wide receiver position. Kittle all of a sudden is on fire. Minnesota, if they would have to play them. I know that Eagles beat them up pretty badly. That was several weeks ago. Dallas just got them badly. That's what you worry about. A team that could throw it and could spread you out. How will they attack it? That would be off of what Q&A were saying, and just hearing them encapsulate the issues they have with the coverages and lack of aggressiveness, which we'll talk about later in the show today. Those are the things that would bother me.
Yeah, I had some conversations this week myself, not just with those two, but some other people about the defense and sort of the conflict of seeing that they only allowed 13 points, but that opening drive, some of the other drives early in the first half. And, in retrospect, I may have defended I may have defended Gannon a little bit too much in our last podcast and said, hey, the bottom line is you gave up 13 points, because I think the context that is lacking is that maybe if that's not New Orleans and if that's different quarterback, better weapons, better offense, like it was the week before, it was 40 points against Dallas. So if any of our listeners thought I was overly too defensive or I criticized people who were criticizing Gannon, and then my mea culpa, because I think, even though I think he deserves some criticism, but I think it's an absolutely fair fair question to say, what will this defense be in the playoffs against high caliber quarterbacks and offensive schemes? I think that's an absolutely fair question. And anybody who asks it, I have no criticism of those people.
On that point, so if you really look at it, right,
Mm-hmm.
you look at the type of quarterbacks they faced. Aaron Rodgers had a busted up thumb. He had some plays against them, and that was a 73-point game. Eagles won 40-33, but
yeah, I mean, they still put up 33. That's not great.
Right.
Washington put up 26 out of those 30. I think that 26 points. They scored 31, but they had a defensive touchdown at the end.
Right. The Heineke one, right. They gave up 32 points, but it wasn't quite what you would think. But Heineke, that was when they couldn't get off the field with the run. They were terrible on third down.
Right.
And Chicago, they almost lost that game. Fields made some plays in that game.
Sure.
With his feet, 95 yards, and they didn't really tackle well.
Right.
So yeah, that's the thing. It's like you worry about who they might face in the playoffs, and the seedings aren't completely done yet. So, and I know that the people are so worried now because I've seen this out on social media, and I get it. Because all of a sudden the Bucs offense is sort of taken off lately, particularly last week. Really, last week was the best games of the year. Brady played out of his mind all of a sudden against Carolina, who was without two of their top corners. But
right,
yeah, the Eagles could be, if they don't get the number 1 seed, the 5 seed. Of course, they would have to go to Tampa again.
Yeah,
for the second straight year, which would be kind of interesting.
Or Green Bay's hot if they get the 7 seed and they win a first round matchup, and the Eagles are able to win and get and it could be Green Bay coming back. And like we just said, that wasn't even a good Green Bay team at the time that still wound up scoring 33 points and getting some explosive plays on the Eagles. So, I mean, yeah, I think it's fair. It's fair to be concerned. We'll get into that with Greg Cosell also and Jason Avant on Sunday as well in the pregame show. And then, of course, the postgame show, which will be a really fascinating one, depending on how this game goes with you, with Adam, myself, and Trey Thomas. Probably kick off around 7:30. We'll try to do it shortly after the end of the show. I mentioned Q&A. I mentioned your last podcast. Your power rankings are definitely worth checking out on InsideTheBirds.com. There's a lot of interesting movement with some teams there. And any other updates there? No, I think that pretty much says what it is.
Will you and I and Andrew DeCecco, we doing a season-ending awards? Like, will we do that maybe next week?
You know what? That's I think we talked about, if the Eagles get the bye, doing that at some point during the bye week as a podcast where we kind of wrap up the regular season.
Award show. Yeah.
Now, if the Eagles lose and they're playing in the first round, we got to go straight into. They're not. They can't lose to the backups, right? I mean,
I talked to a lot of my friends this week. I always try to take the pulse of fans and see what they think. I don't necessarily have to agree with everything they're saying, but hey, we want to address some of their concerns. And I think what bothered, as we get into the show, what bothered a lot of people is they know how much better the Eagles are than the Saints, and they play down to their level. It's not the first time this has happened to this team. I get it. You're an NFL team. Anyone could beat you. You're not going to be at your best every week. That's certainly true. But I think what bothered people is this is a home game where, and yes, Minshew played poorly, but even as badly as he played, they still should have won the game. And I think people were they're kind of partially shocked and super pissed off. That's my friends that I spoke to this week. They're all season ticket holders. They all get crusty and nasty up top. I have friends who are sitting up top.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what you deal with. I know, I get it. I was a fan once many moons ago, and it's like kind of like I like it. Said this to my friend when Brett Brown was the Sixers head coach.
Mm-hmm.
He would have these bizarre lineups. He would forget you can't have you have to have 2 scorers in it all the time. He'd have these bizarre lineups. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Right. Enough. I would get so mad, and then you see the fans are mad at Gannon. It's a little over the top, but we understand your concerns. No matter how well the defense plays overall, you want them to play more aggressive, and we'll get into that. We agree with you.
Yeah.
But just the concerns I think people have is they almost felt shortchanged. Like, how in the world could you lose to a team that has barely anything offensively? Now, defensively, Lattimore coming back obviously was a game changer for them. Who knew he'd play as much as he didn't play as well, but they still should have won that game. And I think some fans are wondering, hey, were we wrong about this team? Or are they really as good as their record is? And that's out there, and I understand it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And by the way, Shane Steichen doing the right thing, kind of taking the podium and taking the accountability. I believe he said it was his worst game as a play caller. So it's not as I've heard coaches have bad games and sort of say, I would do it all again. It just, they blame the result, but the process was good. I interpreted from Shane Steichen's press conference that if he had to do it all over again, they would do things differently. I mean, I don't think he said my whole game plan sucked a bit, but he took accountability in the way that I think will make people feel better that they learned something from that loss.
Yeah, on that, it's kind of what I said in our last show. If you're going to throw it a lot with a guy who's struggling, could you give him throws that are, I hate to call them easy, but sort of layup throws that would just get him confident? I thought that was lacking in this game plan. It wasn't just the pick six, which clearly was on Minshew. That's on Minshew, folks. That's clearly on Minshew. But that's three people I spoke to all said the same thing. I mean, he Latimer read him the whole time. Now, if you want to say, could you give him a throw that's a clear out throw where you're completely clearing Latimer out, that's a different story, but that you could say it anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, okay, man, I appreciate Steichen saying that. He's been so good.
Mm-hmm.
Although would you believe it? I saw some couple people wanted him fired after that game.
I do believe it.
I know. I'm sorry. Yeah, I know. I used to love when you would say, like, okay, they wanted Schwartz, the picket fence game. They wanted everyone fired. The GM, Schwartz, of course.
Yeah.
Some people didn't want them to. They want him to stay in Tennessee, not fly back with the team. Fire him there.
Yeah. Well, I've always joked that if you lose 2 games in a row in Philadelphia, 2 football games in a row, the second game is always fire everybody. Like it's just, it is almost intolerable in this city to lose 2 games in a row. So, and so you can imagine how it was 4 years ago when they were only a 4 games.
What were they? Were they 4-12 Doug's last year?
Yeah, and you know what? Pretty much almost everybody did get fired.
Well, no, and they got it. As much as they love Doug, brought him to Super Bowl, they totally got it. But
yeah,
it is what it is. We get it.
Yeah,
we're not tone deaf. We listen to everybody. You know, we see the comments. People are upset. I mean, we always told you we shot you straight last year. It seemed like every week we were just really unloading on Gannon. I felt almost bad about it, but it was all sourced. It was all people who are grading this tape and just. But see, this year it's different because there's much more talent, which we're going to talk about in a couple of minutes.
Yeah. All right, let's get into some Eagles injuries. Before we even do that, I just want to take a minute to acknowledge from our end of this pod, Inside the Birds, how great and encouraging the news is that the latest as of us recording this pod on Damar Hamlin. Things continue to get better. Latest reports were that he was able to communicate a little bit, writing things down. I guess he's responsive to certain things. What an amazing thing that he asked who won. And they told him, you won the game of life. And I
love that,
man. it's really cool.
It's from the doctor. Yeah. The doctor had a press conference on, I'm going to say Thursday.
Right.
And it was great. Yeah. It was just fantastic. It's just, it's amazing the progress that he's made over the last 3 days. And let's hope it continues on that upward track. And the fact that he was able to speak, because you worry about the neuro signs when something like this traumatic event happens. You just don't know how the body's going to respond.
Right.
But and hopefully he progresses to the point where he could hold a press conference. A lot of the times when people, celebrities or athletes have traumatic events, they eventually, if everything works out for them, they hold a press conference where they can talk and just talk about how they're feeling. And it's boy, man, things have come a long way, man, since Monday. Yeah, it seems like 2 weeks. It's been so much has happened. It's only been 3 days. It's just,
I know, it's crazy.
So much has happened.
Yeah. So, and a big shout out to the fans. I think the NFL, the football fans, the humanitarians have really showed up, whether it's expressing their support for him on social media, sports talk radio, whatever it is. And then of course the donations to his foundation, which have exceeded over $6 million. That's really awesome. And it's, there are times in the last few years where I think we've all questioned our faith in humanity. And these are one of the times where it's like, it feels like faith gets restored a little bit. So definitely a shout out to everybody out there for showing their love and support. All right, let us talk about these Eagles injuries. They're obviously very, very impactful, and some developments. It starts with Jalen Hurts it was a good sign. We talked in the last podcast. The best signs will be, does he do more than he did last week? Well, he made it to the walkthrough. He participated in that on Wednesday, which he hadn't done the 2 Wednesdays prior. And then, even though listed as limited in practice on Thursday, he was still taking reps and throwing the ball. So these are positive developments that seem to put the trajectory at Jalen Hurts starting against the Giants.
Yeah, this is the natural progression. We'd said to start last week that it didn't sound good from what we were hearing that he'd be able to play, and he didn't wind up playing. But he did throw on that Thursday. That was good.
Right.
And then he, on the walkthrough, on a speed walkthrough, you're really not. You're just walking through literally, but on a brisk pace. And today, Friday morning, is the big thing, man. That's when they practiced this afternoon. Obviously, you want to see it because he threw. He did. It was more. He threw more this Thursday, so you want to see how he feels. It would be a small surprise if he doesn't start. I would, because I'm thinking they thought he would probably make a ton of progress this week, because last week was the first week he would throw, and then this is the week he'd open it up. And everything we've heard has been good, but we need to see how he does today. And honestly, most of our show today is going to be devoted to him. And then Sunday, if for some reason it's Minshew, then we'll devote Sunday's pregame show solely to Minshew at quarterback.
Yeah, I think you're hitting on an important point that gets lost a lot with these injuries, among fans, among, I don't know, maybe media or sports talk. People sort of, not all people, some people sort of think that these decisions are either made like immediately in the week, or if not, there's some sort of gamesmanship going on. Like, oh, is he not? Are they listing him as this? When you have an injury that is not fully healed, like 100%, and you're coming back from it, and you've done some rehab, and and then you're back out there, it is a process. And as you're mentioning, a lot of the process, a big part of it, is response to activity. You go out there, you participate in a walkthrough, you do a little bit more than you did a week before. How do you feel the next day? Then you go out there, you take some first team reps, you throw the football. How does it feel the next day? And I feel like sometimes the conversations are, oh, he's listening, the Eagles are being coy, or the Eagles aren't saying whether he's starting. I don't think people sometimes understand that the answer isn't clear all the time by Monday before the game, or even by Wednesday or Thursday. It is a development, and it is also not just coaches and player, but medics. The training staff has to evaluate and see how it is, and then evaluate it after activities. So because I kept hearing things on, either radio or just people calling in saying, the Eagles withheld him on Sunday because they were afraid of this, or they're gonna play it coy this week because they don't. It's very possible, it's more probable, that in many situations with injuries, not just Jalen Hurts, that the Eagles teams have to find out. They have to see where their player is at before they make any declaration. It's not always just cut and dry on the Monday before a game. Like 6 days.
They'll have an idea. Like last week, they knew he wasn't playing.
Right.
That's this is why we said we had heard pretty strongly that it wasn't going to happen.
Right.
Now we put an asterisk, barring something unforeseen, like he had this Herculean recovery, in 4 days, it wasn't going to happen. I kind of got to laugh about Sirianni just talking about, he heals different than you people do.
That was a little odd.
I'm a fan of his. I think he's really good, and sometimes with him, I don't know if he's serious half the time with this stuff. When he says stuff that's outrageous, I know he's a passionate guy. I get that, but sometimes it's like he wants you to think like, well, I know more than you do about the player. Doesn't really need to say it the way he did it. I thought it was ridiculous.
It does.
He wasn't he's trying to be a jerk about it, but he's kind of like, hey, you don't understand this player. He's got superpowers.
He was literally making it seem like Jalen Hurts was bit by a radioactive spider.
Right. That's what I mean.
Now he's like webbing himself all around the NovaCare comp. Like, come on.
now, no, listen. Hey, Willis Reed did it. But again, it's looking good, but it's not a lock. You and I are going on everything we've gathered from several sources on this one. It would be a small surprise to me, not a major surprise if he didn't play. It's just how he feels and what the docs tell him. But everything we've heard the last week and a half, it's gone to, as you say, according to Hoyle.
Yeah,
one of my favorite lines, and we'll see what happens later today.
Right.
Oh, and by the way, didn't kudos to Sirianni. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did he not say, it looks like Jalen won't make it, it's going to be Gardner? Did he say that in the press conference? Wasn't that before practice?
Last week, right?
That Friday, right?
Yeah, yes, he did. He was pretty forthright about it. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Let me give him a compliment. That was good of him,
Yeah.
because as Cozy tries to debate, sometimes it's really annoying.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of surprised when he did that. I was like, wow, he's actually letting everyone know that Hurts is not going to play. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And now that they lost, he'll probably never do it again. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I'm
No,
kidding. But no, I mean, like you're saying, we can be told anything from sources about trajectory, and that's what we are. That looking pretty good, but he's got to practice Friday, then he's got to wake up Saturday, and they have to evaluate how he feels. And if he wakes up Saturday and it's like, oh, I can't get my arm, but well, nobody could have predicted that like 3 days before. So that's why it's a day by day. This time they're really being truthful. It is a day to day injury and a day by day process. Let's go on to other guys. So Miles Sanders had the left knee thing. I mean, even Nick Sirianni talked about how, you know, he's wearing the brace. They obviously gave a few more carries to the other running backs, but so we'll see. He was limited on Wednesday again. So
well, I was a walkthrough. Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, limited on Thursday.
Yes.
For the first practice. So we'll see. I
He's
have a feeling
play.
like they're going to give this guy less and less work, like some of the other veterans anyway, as you're getting really late in the season.
Maybe, but he's expected to play. He's definitely expected to play. The only question is, as you mentioned, Boston Scott had 40% of the running back snaps, but didn't even have anywhere close to what Sanders got in terms of carries. Right. It was just interesting that they knew going into the game that he has some sort of left knee injury. We don't know what it is exactly, but they knew it was enough where he could play, but they don't want to wear it down because he now has an injury. But Miles has done a good job of fighting through a couple of minor stuff here. And then, this is really interesting with Lane Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
I have a file on 32 teams on injuries in an Excel file. So I chart the stuff. So they changed it from abdominal to groin. Why? Because it's an adductor tear, which you outlined very well in our Wednesday show, is in the groin area. So they changed it from abdominal to groin. How about that?
Yeah. It's sort of like, I wonder what made the decision. Oh, you know what? We've been saying that, like, let's just change it to groin. I just wonder what went in the first place, because it's always been, I guess, I don't know, has it been maybe they just didn't realize for the first, I don't know, day or two that they were writing abdomen. But yeah, the adductor attaches the groin to the inside of the thigh, so it's way closer to the lower end than the upper end where the abdomen is. So
having it stretched for tennis man, I was not even, I knew what it was, but I never had, it's not like I ever stretched that area. And when I had it stretched, oh, okay.
Right.
Ooh.
Right.
That it's definitely, you just described exactly where it is. And it when you, like we were talking about how, I don't know how Lane is going to get through this, because you have to manipulate your body a certain way to get through this with your core. I just don't know how he's going to make it through. So we'll see. We'll learn more about his injury over the next week or so, and hopefully for the Eagles' sake, they get the bye, man. Boy, would that help.
I feel for Lane, because I know he's tough as nails and he's trying hard, but this is not I mean, listen, no injury is easy to play through, but some are a little harder than others, and this is a really, really difficult injury to play through. So even if he's out there, he's going to be in some discomfort. But we'll see what happens in the playoffs there. As for Sunday's game on defense, really, as far as guys on the 53, we know Avonte Maddox is not going to play. Josh Sweat, obviously not going to play because of the neck injury. So I'm sure they'll have him back for the playoffs. So I guess that would mean you're going to see probably more Patrick Johnson and Brandon Graham probably play a few extra snaps. Well, depends on how long. It depends if they get this game done. You know, if you're up 28-0 after. Yeah.
Well, so in that case, okay, let's extrapolate that a little bit. In that case, if they're blowing them out like the last game, geez, with the Giants, we'll get into what we think is going to happen based on what we've heard. They should house them again, and Patrick Johnson should get more reps in BG. And BG, they don't play him a ton of snaps, and boy, that role, the way that they use him is so perfect. It's just, it is a crazy, at least in terms of sacks. I wouldn't say it's his best year as an NFL player, but he's played very well. But this role, he's had his biggest sack year, and it's just it's pretty remarkable what he's done coming off a torn Achilles. So I got to admit, man, last March or whatever it was, the OTAs, I remember hearing that we actually put this on a show how well he was doing, and okay, Let's see.
Right.
And then we saw an OTAs with our own eyes. We're like, what? Wow, is this like really real? Okay, let's see what happens at training camp. He tore it up in
Right.
training camp.
Right.
I was like, this is because I've been fooled with certain positions. Guys look good, and then all of a sudden you get to the regular season, they don't look good. But at his age, coming off this injury, this just doesn't happen with Achilles when
No.
you're in your 30s. Come
No.
on.
No.
Amazing.
It's been remarkable actually.
Mhm.
So yeah, I will see probably him get some snaps early as they with him and Hassan Reddick as your edge rushers, but they'll get Patrick Johnson in there, and maybe they will elevate Teron Jackson
Yes.
to take Josh Sweat's spot. So we'll see on that. And Sean Bradley's got the wrist. He had the wrist injury early. I think he was limited on Thursday.
Yes.
So
Well, I'm going to be interested because I know people are asking, and I've gone through this just based on what we know about how the team feels about each player.
mhm.
Let's say, for argument's sake, that we'll get to Robert Quinn and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson in a minute. But if they need roster spots, like I went through the roster, you'll be surprised. We're going to get. We'll explain where I'm going here in a second here. So basically, it's not going to be easy as you think just to cut players.
To
Some
make the
teams have
room,
plenty
right?
of players. What's that?
To clear room for those two guys, right?
Right. What I'm saying is, it's just you could go through 31 other teams, or some teams that aren't very good. You go, oh, you could find five guys easily. Team could cut. It's not as easy quite as I thought when I went through it, gathering information on some of the back end players.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a reason why they're still on the team. It's not just because they don't have. It's not that they don't have anyone else. It's just that they like the player, and maybe next year if certain things happen, this like a guy like Trey Sermon, for example, like to me he has no role in the team. But they didn't their thought process was when they claimed him, they had a good grade on him. Sanders' contract is up. Boston Scott's contract is up. And Kenny Gainwell's not a guy who's going to handle a lot of carries anyway. So
Mm-hmm.
Sermon could be on the team next year and have a decent role. Who knows? So
Right.
that's why it's easy to say, oh, they just cut him.
Right.
Okay, because he doesn't have a role. I get that, but they have a plan for these players. This is a team that thinks really well ahead, better than most teams.
Mm-hmm.
And who knows? We'll see. If these guys come off the injury off of IR. So we'll talk about that in a second. But so we know Vontae Max is out for a bit, but we said on was the last show or Sunday too as well. He's doing really well. He's actually in a walking boot. He's not on crutches.
Mm-hmm.
That's really positive. They didn't put him on IR. They clearly think he can return. The championship game is definitely something that, if not before, could be a possibility. Zach McPherson returned to practice to Thursday. He'll play. Now here we go. Off the injury before we get to Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. So guys who were on it last week but removed this week. AJ Brown with the knee. Remember he got dinged a couple weeks ago against Dallas. He's fine. Jordan Davis came through the game. In fact, he had some good snaps last week from a concussion. He's good to go. She had 2 weeks ago, and Linval Joseph missed. He was limited one practice last week with an illness. He's off the injury report. So the other two guys are Robert Quinn and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who are on IR. Both are practicing. They were in the walkthrough Wednesday, worked Thursday, as we understand. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, we're told, looks really good. But the question would be, do they want to get him just a little bit of practice time? This game doesn't mean a lot. Do they think he's ready to play a full game? I can't answer those questions. But if he's activated Saturday, he's playing. You don't activate a guy with it's very rare. One of the team, I think the Bengals for the Monday night game, I don't know why they did this. I don't know what was going on. They took a practice squad quarterback, elevated him, but it didn't have him active for the game, which is sort of odd.
That is odd. Maybe no, not maybe in
Yeah,
the
I don't know. That
pregame
was
warm up something happened. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It was kind of weird. But anyway, so yeah, I don't know. But rarely is it a guy you activate off of IR for a Sunday game on Saturday and you don't play the guy.
Right.
So for obviously the deadline will be the deadline for that week. This week is tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern. So we'll see what happens with CJ Gardner-Johnson. But he's kind of like this part I don't know if he's in terms of conditioning. I don't know that he's ready. I just know he looks really good. So then of course if he's active, if they activate, we're gonna have a lot more about his potential role. There's like 2 to 4 different roles he could have. It comes down to Blankenship and a couple of the other players, because this guy is a game changer as a center fielder. They've not had, I quite frankly, maybe you know better. I can't remember a player like this organization has had who could track the ball like this.
Yeah, no, it would have to be a wide receiver, not a safety.
Yeah, exactly right. That's what I mean. I just haven't seen it.
Yeah, no, he's been great at that. I think one of the questions the Eagles will have to ask themselves, Adam, is, if they want to activate Robert Quinn, is it really worth getting Robert Quinn in there when he's a veteran? He's already been hurt, sort of. He's already been on the injury report for the Eagles twice with two different things, right? A back and a knee.
Yeah.
Yeah, for some guys, you do want to get them some activity before the playoffs, but he's a veteran. He's not a starter, situational pass rusher. You really want to activate him for the season finale and put him out there and then have to either make another transaction to get room for him, or do you just want to, it's good. You've had him back out of practice. I mean, I feel like, I know you're trying to win this game and you have to treat it accordingly.
Oh yeah.
But I don't think he's such a key player, because he hadn't really done anything since I traded for him, that he's your make or break player that you think you're either going to win or lose against the Giants with. I just don't know if the risk is worth the reward of having Robert Quinn active for this final game.
Well, okay. So let's say one of them is activated, right? So to clear a spot, this is where it's difficult, because if Janoris Robinson, okay, he has a minor injury right now. It's one of these situations where had they earned the bye, had they already won one of the last two games and had the first round bye, you can certainly see Janoris Robinson not being cut. Let him play week 18, because you want the DNs, like Patrick Johnson, Robinson, Kyron Johnson could be your pass rushers, because the game would not mean anything. Well, now the game means something.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to make a decision. Do you want to walk away from Janoris Robinson? Because he could be claimed. Every player now who you cut go through waivers at this time of year after the trade deadline. This is a guy, they like his length. For whatever reason, the staff of Minnesota didn't want this staff
Mm-hmm.
this year, but the Eagles liked him. They had a decent grade on him. He's got good length, and with BG a little bit older, obviously, they might have an
Mm-hmm.
opening for a backup guy.
Mm-hmm.
So they like to see him. It's just hard now because of Hurts's injury. They can't cut Ian Book, can't afford to do that. As I just mentioned, Sermon, the Eagles kind of like to see this through with him, and because of Scott and Sanders being free agents next year, they're not locks to return. So, Zach Pascal's not going anywhere. Covey, he's their punt returner.
Yeah, I mean, my theory. I wouldn't be afraid to cut Covey, elevate Greg Ward for punt returner, bring
Sure.
Covey back to your practice squad, and then he'll have, because elevations reset and are unlimited in the playoffs, then you can use him. You can elevate him for every single playoff game you need as your punt returner. The only thing you have to worry about, and I can't imagine this, but ordinarily, I don't think anybody is poaching Britton Covey if he's on waivers, trying to get him, signing him to your 53. I would say that ordinarily you wouldn't worry about that. However,
no, he goes. Yeah, you mean he claims him? He goes automatically to 53. He's not signed.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not worried about a team claiming him onto their 53, because he's a punt returner and that's it right now.
Sure.
But you do have to be conscious or cognizant of the fact that because teams are eliminated, there are some teams out there that are not afraid to just.
That's the problem.
I mean, if this were week 6, I'd say you got no issues. I still don't think you have issues, but there are some teams that are out of it and would be all right with. I'd worry more about the defensive end that you're talking about, Janoris Robinson, losing him and somebody trying to put him on the 53 who's out of it, than Britton Covey. But I can understand if the Eagles maybe didn't want to even take that chance.
There is always the chance teams do this. They're not supposed to. The phantom injury.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
I mean, you never know, because I don't know how. I just.
Is that what happened to Sean Bradley? They said, "Hey, does your wrist hurt?" He said, "No," and then he banged it with a bat and said, "No, it does."
I didn't. I wasn't
I'm just kidding.
Anyone specifically, but because I would laugh when I covered the NBA for 1 year. 03, 04. I started trying to cross over to both sports, and I just bagged it because it was too intensive. You just can't do it. But I was pretty into the NBA in 04. And do you remember the lower lumbar strain?
Yeah.
It was the fake injury du jour. Every team they outlawed the way that you could keep players out and
Uh-huh.
roster set and all that stuff. It was just you would see it on the injury report, lower lumbar. It was a scam. Teams were
Yeah.
getting away with it,
Yeah. It was,
and
you
and,
almost
and
think it would be, it was like contagious. Like, can
right,
somebody catch
that's
that from
right.
somebody
It was
else?
such a joke.
Can you
Lower
catch a
lumbar
lower
strain.
lumbar strain? We
Oh
have an
my god!
epidemic on our team, like the Giants with their neck
Right,
injuries all year
but
long.
it just was bad, and teams are taking advantage of a loophole. But just getting back to this,
Yeah.
I don't know. Do they like Josh Jobe? They like to see him develop with
Good
Bradbury
point.
being up.
Good
They
point.
need lower. They need younger developmental corners. They just don't have anyone other than McPherson. We don't know about Jobe yet, but they like to see it through with him. They like him,
Uh-huh.
so it's tough. I mean, they'll have a plan, but Josh Sills, he was like the 53rd guy. He was like the last guy to make it.
Right.
I don't know, but
Yeah, that's
that's a
good.
Stalin special. What's that?
I could see that. Hey, Josh, your knee hurting? No, coach, I'm
No, but
fine.
I'm just saying overall.
Why
No,
don't
but
you
I'm
go
just
see
saying over.
Big Dom for a few minutes? And
No, but I'm just saying overall, in terms of guys who could cut,
yeah,
who are healthy.
yeah.
I don't know. I'm kind of. I can't believe I'm struggling with this, but just Sills would make the most sense. Stalin likes him. That's why he's there. But
All
I
right.
mean, is anyone going to claim Josh Sills?
Yeah. Well, they kept him on they literally kept him over Anderson and Awasika right at the time because they
Yeah,
thought he might. So you never know.
sure.
You
Oh,
remember Andy Weidel and the guy in New York, Brandon Brown,
Brown.
right? They're
Yeah,
there. They know these guys a little bit, so you never know.
that's true. Because Andy, when did Andy get hired?
He
Spring,
got
late spring.
that was late. That was like late in the
That's a
off
great
season,
point
right?
because
Yeah.
yeah, he. By the way, he has brought in
He's got
Elijah
some Eagles
Riley.
and Jets over there. Yeah.
Yeah, the guy who was
Dunkel.
offensive. What's that?
Dunkel. William Dunkel.
Dunkel. That's it. William Dunkel. Right. It was a guy. It was his last name was interesting. Dunkel.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think he's
Yeah.
got
So yeah,
another former Eagle there too.
there's
Whose
another.
name is
Yeah, you're
escaping
right.
me.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Andy's brother's there. He was actually
Yep.
hired before Andy.
That's correct. Yeah. All
So
right.
that's it. To move
Any
on.
Giants injuries that you
Yes.
want to discuss? Go
Oh
ahead.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So here's what I think is going to happen. I don't
And
think
again,
Leonard
we don't know
Williams is
if
going
these
to
guys
play.
are playing, but go ahead.
No, no. This is what I know from my sources. So I don't think
Okay.
Leonard Williams is going to play with a neck. He's had
Right.
this injury for several weeks. Azeez Ojulari's been hurt a lot this season with a calf
Yeah.
injury, his ankle injury. Probably won't play. Dory Jackson, I believe, is a grade 2 MCL. He's been out 6 weeks.
Hmm.
I don't see. I know he's starting to work back. I I don't know this, but my thinking is if this game meant something, because remember they're locked in the 6th seed, he might even
Right.
play a little bit just to get his feet wet because he's been out for so long. He's their best corner. He's so fast, but he's got he's had a significant knee injury, so he's just getting back to start. He started working last week.
Hmm.
Um, John
Let's.
Feliciano pulled up with a back injury this week, but they are so we're gonna more on this on Monday, Sunday morning on our show at 10 a.m. Eastern. But our early word what we're hearing is they're probably not gonna play starters very much, if at all,
Hmm.
which is what they should do anyway. They're locked into it. They got in the playoffs. What a great story. But they as you said, I think we talked about this on our Wednesday show. They have
Hmm.
so little depth on their team. They don't have the depth the Eagles have.
Right.
They can't afford any injuries. Not that you want any injuries, but
Sure.
they're in dire straits. So here's what I think their offensive line is going to look like. Let me show you this real quick here.
By the way, I'm while you look for that, I'm gonna talk.
I
I
got
want
it.
to talk to Cosell and Avant about what you sort of mentioned about their corners. Adoree Jackson, no doubt their fastest corner, supposed to be the
Used to
best,
be
highest
okay.
paid. I really like Darnay Holmes. He's sort of like sneaky good. I know he got beat a couple of times by the Eagles, but not because he wasn't there, just because the throw was and the
Yes,
catch was great. But he's a pretty good corner. Now I know he's an inside, he's a nickel,
the
although
nickel.
he's
Yeah,
had to play some outside this year because of their injuries. I don't know how well he's played, but I do like him. He may not be as talented or physically as Adoree, but maybe he's a better overall. I don't know. Well, we'll talk to Cassell
actually,
about that.
when we get to the Giants offense, well, that's when I'll give you I have it.
Yeah.
What
Okay.
what
Cool.
the
Cool.
line will look like. But all right, so let's get the Eagles offense versus the Giants defense.
All right, before we get into that, go get your game on at the Gallery Bar Book and Games in Ocean Casino Resort this football season. Cheers your favorite drinks while cheering on your favorite team. Get in on a parlay while in the middle of a party. Go for the sports scene and go for the endless screens. Go to the gallery, go to Ocean, go for the win. For more information, visit the oceanac.com. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, let us talk a little bit about this Eagles offense against the Giants defense. Again, we're going to sort of operate right now into the impression Hurts is going to go unless he has any setbacks or anything like that. Now, I think, again, the question is, though, they killed the Giants the last time they played them. If they're up 28-0 and, does Hurts get the hook and Minch? I would think so. I mean,
of course.
Yeah.
Oh, are you kidding? If they get up, look, how many they've done at least twice that I could recall. Maybe you remember. You might remember that it was more than 2 games. I know at least 2 games they pulled Hurts in the fourth quarter because they were up so big.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go. Like I said earlier, we'll just change it. It's very simple. It's Sunday morning. If we hear or if it's announced or whatever that it's going to be Minshew, then we'll just go with Minshew. We have plenty of Savant and Greg will have plenty of information on Minshew, and it won't be pretty if he has to be the starter based on the way he played last week. But it's only 1 week.
But anyway. So now, if you're the offensive brain trust here, and first of all, the Giants are going to, even with backups, Don Martindale is going to do what he does. He blitzes. He tries to break down your protection scheme. So, and then you also know that your quarterback is still nursing the shoulder. So I would imagine that the QB run, the zone read quarterback keeper, is not going to be the most prominent part of their offense, especially the way they were able to move the ball through the air last time they played the Giants. So, I mean, would you agree that they'll probably dial back on the quarterback run?
Yeah, we talked about this probably a week ago, so we could just revive it and move this forward. I cannot imagine that, because I understand, like, there's when you have your starting quarterback out there, you generally think he can do anything, but you also want to protect him as much as you can. And I know they don't have Lane Johnson, but you have to be very careful of what you expose him to. You can't give him unnecessary contact with that right shoulder. You just can't. As you pointed out on our show 3 weeks ago, he's also got a collarbone issue. So you don't want him taking unnecessary hits. So to me, now I know we had this email, and this is a great question about Hurts going under. We're going to put this on our Sunday show about Hurts playing under center. I don't think it had much to do with about being hurt. It's about why they need to do so many RPOs. Can't they have him under center some? Well, yeah, they can. Now we remember you and I talked about this. They did it actually the week we asked for it. It was the Raider game last year.
Yeah.
Why don't they put the guy under center? And voila, they did.
They do it like 2 or 3 times during a stretch of games, but it's it's really not there. You can't run RPOs from it, so I guess that they're still aiming to put defenses in conflict as much as possible. But in a game like this, Adam, where I completely agree, I think you might see more of it. I think the fans are going to get what they want. They want more running. They want a little bit more of a downhill style. I even think the passing game might be more intermediary to quick game. Like, let's get some quick ones to Dallas Goedert, quick ones maybe in the slot to either Pascal or Watkins, or maybe they move Devontae in there a little bit more, so that they're not having them try to drop back again. And by the way, the quick game is the best combat to the blitz anyway. You're probably going to see a lot of spread. You're probably going to see a lot of empty, everything designed for Jalen Hurts to, when they're not running, to get rid of the ball pretty quickly. And again, if it's the Giants backups and you've got your mammoth offensive line and you've got your running backs, it just makes sense to just kind of, lean on that a little bit more than usual.
Yes. Well, it's kind of, it seems obvious to me that they should do what you just said, but they're just understand. What's that?
But you're a little skeptical. I can hear it.
I just one of these situations where the staff, I know fans, it drives them up crazy how much they throw the football. When we told you this a year and a half ago what they wanted to do, they didn't want they tried it early on. They saw Hurts couldn't handle it, so they dialed it back smartly, and now they're letting him do it because they love him and they know he's ready to do it. I mean, the first game, they didn't care that it was Wink Martindale is one of the most sophisticated blitz schemes. He's the granddaddy of them all, man. Of all these guys, he's he doesn't do it like the other ones. Too many of these guys, D coordinators, just do it to blitz, and they don't really have a plan how to break down your protection. Believe it or not, yeah, it's true.
Right.
But this guy does. But the Eagles housed him. They had no problem handling him. That was a crazy thing. It was like they got him 24 times. They threw it in the first matchup, and Hurts was super comfortable, super aggressive. They ran the heck out of it. They only ran the ball 7 times in the second half. Excuse me,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
pass the ball,
Lane passed
right?
it 7 times in the second half. That tells you how
Yeah.
much they're up.
Listen, I just think like, this is a pretty smart coaching staff. We've credited them. They've had a few blips along the way, but you don't have Lane Johnson out there. This team loves to blitz. You have a quarterback making his first start coming off a shoulder sprain, who's probably still not 100%. Be smart. I'll have no problem if you come out like no huddle, quick game, and you're peppering the middle of the field with Dallas Goedert out of empty sets and you're into like that makes sense to me too. If you can move the ball through the air intermediately by getting rid of just kind of the way Andy Dalton did against the Eagles, fine. 3-step drops. I have no issue with that. If you'd come out with 7 of those passes, 4 runs, and your ratio is still pass heavy, but I would just say I would worry about the deep threat,
That's it.
Trying to go take shot plays against the blitzing.
They can't help themselves. They can't. Remember when you asked Greg? I love the little byplay you and Cosell had on the last show, because I wasn't sure where he was going to go with it. He really liked the question about, are they too deep shot heavy?
Yeah,
right. And they love shot plays. This staff they just love, because if they have guys that can win, they win. Their guys almost win all the time deep. It's very rare for Smith, particularly Brown, not to win. Now, if you protect it, look, look, the weather right now looks like the rain is going to be in the low 40s, but it looks like the early forecast looks like it's going to clear by the game. They're going to take shots. That's just what they do. Now, on your point, I agree. They might dial up the run a little bit more percentage-wise in the first half, but they're not going to hide Hurts, because if you're going to do that, why play him?
Right.
It's not. But there's a smarter way.
Because if you're just going to hand the ball off 80% of the time, you could just have Gardner Minshew do that.
That's
I agree
my point. But you can mix it up more. You set it up very well. Be smart with it. Higher percentage throws. Get out of his hands quickly. Don't take unnecessary shots. So that's the way you see the quarterback.
Absolutely. So let's talk about Dallas Goedert, I think, based on what we just said, should probably be more involved than he has been the last 2 weeks. I mean, he's your best quick game weapon. I'd like to see the tight end screen come back. I've been saying that since he got back. Maybe they've been trying to take it easy on, because that's a heavy contact play. So maybe they're trying to take it easy on the shoulder a little bit. But I mean, if there's ever a time to do it, it is now. But in general, the interior is where you want to get the Giants anyway.
Oh, and by the way, so we'll go back to receivers and tight ends in a second. But the one thing you talk about the interior, their secondary, man, has got some issues. They got some issues, but they also up front have issues. I mentioned Leonard Williams. To me, Sanders had a great game. He ran the ball really hard, 17 for 144. Hurts had a huge game running the football as well. The Giants give up a lot of rushing yards. They're ranked 27th in yards given up on the ground. Boston Scott scored in 5 straight games against them, 9 overall. He scored in every time he's played them. Every time that all 7 games against the Giants, he scored. Now, if they get up big, you probably will see a lot of Scott this game. Why not?
Yeah, no doubt about it. You were going to talk a little bit about the cornerbacks, Darnay Holmes, Cordell Flott.
Yes, let's get to that.
Yeah.
So Faber Moreau is a guy coming out of, I think it was UCLA. Not mistake. I think it was UCLA.
I believe you're right.
All corner. It's been like 4 or 5 teams. He's had some injuries. He's just not been quite. He's got the great measurables. He's a starter now with Flott and Nick McLeod. Now, because of the lack of importance of this game, and you mentioned Holmes earlier as their nickel, you're probably not going to see these guys very much at all. Now, I know talking to coaches over the years, in these scenarios when the game doesn't mean anything and they don't want to play very many starters, you can't rest everybody because you only have 47 players on game day plus the call-ups, plus the elevations. So here's what you're probably going to see in their secondary. Rodarius Williams, number 25, who was a 6th rounder last year. Safeties. Now they're playing Landon Collins as a jack linebacker inside. He might play. They may sit down Jalen Smith and Micah McFadden a little bit. Play Carter Coughlin and Jared Davis. You might remember a 1st-round pick from the Lions.
Yeah,
who's on the roster? Who could get some run? Veteran safety Tony Jefferson could play a little bit. Remember, McKinney just came back from the broken fingers from the from the accident that he had. Jason Pinnock, formerly of the Jets, who was claimed off waivers. You're just going to see a lot of numbers and a lot of guys playing who haven't played a lot. And that's pretty much Justin Ellis, Jelly Ellis. You might remember him as a former first round pick for the Raiders. He's been around a long time. He'll probably play a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Jihadi Ward, John Ward's from Philly.
Yep.
His name's Jihadi. He might play a lot because they're running out of players. Ryder Anderson is an undrafted free agent, defensive lineman. So you're going to see a lot of guys who really have not played very much.
Right.
Have to play because we'll update this on Sunday morning because they can't afford. Ojulari's been hurt a lot. Leonard Williams has had this neck.
Yeah,
problem.
they can't lose
Thibodeau,
these guys, right? Yeah.
Right. Thibodeau had the bad injury. Jalen Smith, about his injury history. Dory Jackson, MCL sprain. He's been hurt a lot. That's why the Titans cut him. Although he's played pretty well. But he's been hurt. McKinney just came back from the SUV accident with the fingers. They just don't have the guys to play. So the Eagles, if this game is close, and if the backups make this game close, the Eagles should be embarrassed. Quite frankly, let's call it like it is.
Totally agree. Right? All right. Before we get into Giants defense, Eagles defense against Giants offense. Let's just help people make a lot of money right now. All right. We're going to help you make a ton of money.
Okay.
So go to the BetRivers app or whatever sportsbook app you use. We prefer it's BetRivers, or come see us on Sunday in our pregame show at Rivers Casino. And whatever prop bet for Boston Scott that there is, hammer it like you've never hammered one before. Like parlay anytime score, 100 yards, anything, whatever you got on Boston Scott, because it's the Giants and the fact that if the Eagles have this game in the bag, he's probably going to see the most snaps of the year, and we know what he does against the Giants. So you want easy money? There you go. Boston Scott, hammer anything that's available from any kind of prop that you can get with Boston Scott. Oh, and by the way, I should just say this since I sound like a read right now, even though I'm not doing a read for anybody. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
That's right. So first game against him, he scored a 19 rushing touchdown. Then he had the three rushing touchdowns.
Yeah.
Then he had a reception. Beautiful catch, you might remember, in 2020.
Uh-huh.
Down the right sideline. Then the next 4 games, he had rushing touchdowns. It's just also, he had a beautiful 66-yard kickoff return in this last game.
That's right. You can't forget about the special teams, too. This man is a Giant slayer. He kills the Giants.
Right.
But that one again from Carson Wentz that he caught 2 years ago, in the last minute of the game, that won the game for it was one of only their 4 wins. That was one of them.
Was that a Sunday night game?
I think it was.
I think it was a primetime game. I thought it was. But...
Yeah. How many touchdowns? He has 8 touchdowns in 7 games.
I have it for 7. 1, 4. Actually, maybe
8.
No. I'm sorry. He's not. He has 9. 9.
No, well, 9 if you count
games.
The receiving one. Yeah, 9.
Yes, 9 in 7 games. 8 rushing, 1 receiving of all players.
I don't even know if Zeke Elliott has that many touchdowns. It's just crazy. It's unbelievable.
And his he's caught 17 out of 22 targets.
Mm-hmm.
That's the crazy 4.7 yards per carry. He's had a lot of carries. What the hell? What?
He averages 13 yards a catch against them. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
I don't understand. I have to look for an interview. I want to see if he's been interviewed. I'd love to see what he says. It's kind of like Andy. Go ahead. 27 yards per kickoff return against the Giants. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's kind of like Andy Reid will always say, because he's got the best record after buying NFL history. He says he's nothing special. Like he said, I'm always asked this, nothing special.
Right.
Oh, there's got to be something you do. Give the secret sauce out. He doesn't want to give it out.
I am still shocked that the Giants did not sign him in the offseason to just $1 more than the Eagles offered him, just so that he could not kill them. I'm shocked. But they'll have a chance again at the end of this year.
Well, thank goodness he's a kickoff return. He's been kind of found a new lease in life on that role. They paid him a lot of money. In fact, I think it was like 1.7. Let me see. Yeah, 1.75 fully 1.1 fully. What did they? He's an underrated player, but he's basically the 3rd string running back.
Yeah,
that's a lot of money. 1.75. Jeez. Anyway.
All right. Remember to check out our friends at PHLSportsNation.com, enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams for the fan, by the fan. That's their motto. So make sure you check them out at PHLSportsNation.com and on Twitter at PHLSportsNation. Let's pause real quick to hear from our friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schulter, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
And if you happen to stop into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You'll get the very best deal. Okay, let's talk about this Giants offense against the Eagles defense, which, I mean, this is the reason why it kind of could get ugly. I mean, the Giants might be playing backups. I mean, they will be.
Will be.
Yeah. And you just wonder, will it be from the start? Will it be a series or two? But, you know, the Eagles are going to have to play starters. So the Eagles D-line against the Giants O-line. Wait, Adam, just in the first matchup when the Giants were playing starters, it was ugly. So you can imagine what it might look like with the Giants playing backups against this Eagles front.
So in the first matchup, this is a great, I mean, they just housed them. This was one of their best games of the year, most complete defensive games.
Yeah.
Stunts worked. Disguise worked. 7 sacks, hit Jones 12 times.
Mm-hmm.
Evan Neal did not play well. BG had 3 sacks.
Yep.
It was just a virtuoso performance by this defense. And Gannon called a phenomenal game.
Mm-hmm.
See, the Fangio, we've talked about this now for 2 years. When you play this scheme, my one issue with Gannon, it was last year was really bad. He wants to win with coverage and matching coverage with your front. Okay, that's great. But when it's not working, what are you doing to win? And this is the problem people have, and I think it's very fair. Sometimes it's all over the top sometimes, but it's fair because you don't. We talked about selectively blitzing earlier this season. Boy, did he do a good job. When Gannon was like an A-level D coordinator earlier this season, he just was calling it like really, really well in terms of mixing coverages up, but also not double A, but blitz, cover zero blitzes, doing it at the right time. He just had it going. In fact, this game was phenomenal. But I have to go. I know the Dallas game was awful. This past game, in terms of I know they didn't give a lot of points, and that he finally changed it up. He saw it wasn't working, and later in the first quarter, started changing up the coverages better and mixed them up, made Dalton hold on a little bit longer.
Right.
But the point is, where are the blitzes, man? What are you so afraid of?
That's and to your point, like Andy Dalton has a habit of doing that. I don't know if it's that the Eagles forced him to hold on to the ball longer, or if that's, I mean, they did, but he also has repeatedly shown that throughout his career. So again, when it's different guys down the road, we'll see. What I find interesting is I think Tyrod Taylor played in that first game and he wound up throwing a touchdown, right? Or did he run? Either way, he moved the ball against them late. Obviously, they're playing prevent, but
not only do I remember him throwing it, I remember I was setting my laptop up for a post game show. I'm like, just end it already. Just could you stop trying, Giants? Because they were making the game go a little bit longer, but it probably ended around 4:00. But anyway, no, Tyrod threw for one,
right?
And Daniel Jones ran one in, but they housed him. It was like ugly, man. In fact, the first. Well, of course, it was Jamie Gillen, the punter, who could play the crazy.
Oh God, yes.
That's how I remember that game, because it was ridiculous. So what you're probably going to see, folks, we don't know for a fact Daniel Jones won't play. If he plays, it's going to be very little.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see a lot of Tyrod Taylor. Running back is going to be Gary Brightwell,
who had a good game against the Eagles when it was close in the first quarter. He had a couple of nice runs.
He played actually, And then Matt Breida's had a lot of injuries. He's more of a third down back. This staff, who was with this front office, and I think there are a couple coaches on the staff who were in Buffalo. I know the O-line coach was in Buffalo. So they know Breida really well. And then here's the problem that they have, because they're so light at receiver, because their top 3 guys are done this season. They're going to have to play Kenny Gainwell as much as they don't, Kenny Galladay as much as they don't want to play him. The staff, this front office, everyone, like the guy's making like $15 million. I don't care. They just don't want to play him.
Right.
So he's going to have to play. I don't think they could play Hodgins. who's been a great story of development, who was also
No,
with Buffalo.
he's too important to play. You're right.
Yep, Slayton can't play him. They tried to
Right.
trade him, tried to move him. Nobody wanted him. He's still there. Thank goodness they didn't trade him. Richie James has been a great story for them.
Can't play him either. Yeah.
No, in fact, they took him off kickoffs,
Right.
kickoff returns because he's a receiver now. So here you go. Daniel Bellinger came back from the fractured eye socket.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what you're going to see. Here's what I believe you're going to see on Sunday. Offensive line. You might remember Matt Pert from UConn.
Mm-hmm.
At left tackle, he's come back with a torn ACL. Ben Bredesen, who they traded for last year from Baltimore. He started earlier season, then got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Nick Gates will be their center, most likely. Jack Anderson, former Eagle. And then Tyree Phillips, who started, they claimed him off waivers from the Ravens. They started him earlier this season at right tackle. At some point during this game, if they're not starting, they're going to take over these guys.
Yeah.
And the Eagles should just house these guys. This thing, you were talking earlier in the show today about what they could look like in the fourth quarter. I mean, it should be bad the first half for the Giants.
Yes, it should be. By the way, tight ends, your buddy, I know he's on the practice squad, maybe an elevation for I say your buddy, he's just from your hometown, right? Chris Myrick.
Oh, Chris Myrick from Cheltenham High, my modern
I think he's from Elkins Park. Now you're more
Elkins Park.
What? Where were you from?
That's one town over. Elkins Park is one town over from Cheltenham. So yeah, so gotcha. what they'll do is, oh yeah, how can I forget Marcus Johnson, a former Eagle?
Former Eagle. He's actually carved out a nice little journeyman career for himself.
He's gotten hurt so many times. Eagles, Colts, Titans, Niners, Giants, off and on. Seahawks, yes, that was the Seahawks-Eagle trade.
Yep.
You'll see he could run at the University of Texas. So
was that the Michael Bennett trade, by the way? Was it Bennett and a fifth round pick and Marcus Johnson for Bennett?
I think that sounds right. In fact, it had to be because it was 2018. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Yes, good call, buddy.
Thanks.
So that's it. There's really no one else left. I mean, I think we pretty much this should be a fun game. Eagles get there. I'm telling you, if they lose to this team, all these backups playing. Folks, you could scream. I'll give you permission. Scream all you want.
Yeah.
And I will probably scream for you. I would be so embarrassed.
That would be bad. That would be
at
bad.
Home.
I
at
agree.
home.
Well, this segues well into our final segment here, where we're going to pick the score. As I mentioned, the Eagles are 14. Actually, I didn't mention it yet. So on BetRivers.com or the BetRivers app, the Eagles are 14-point. This feels like a normal line for the Eagles about a month ago, right? They're 14-point favorites, and it is a low over/under though. I believe 43 was the over/under number, maybe 42. I'll recheck that. It's 43, right? So, what do you think, Adam? What score do you have?
See, they scored so well in the first matchup, but the only issue is in this one, as you outlined it, you got me thinking about this, talking about Hurts, where they might not ask him to do as much. See, he ran for 77 yards on a touchdown, threw for 2. Again, as we speak of Friday morning, we're assuming we're acting like Hurts is going to play. So if that happens, I'm going to go 40 Eagles, 17 Gents.
All right, 40-17. That's pretty good. I feel like similar. I think the Eagles are going to win. I'm going to say 31-13. I feel like it'll probably be like 24-0 in the third quarter, and then gradually you'll start to see the Eagles bring in their reserves, and then maybe the Giants get on the board after that. But yeah, but I see a 31-13 type final score.
So to me, if Tyrod Taylor is the guy who's starting, we're playing a lot. If Dan Jones plays a series or two, Tyrod Taylor, bottom line, is going to play a lot in this game. I know he's shiftier. Jones has got better straight line speed. Tyrod's a little more shiftier as a runner. Come after him, please. By the way, one of the things I remember talking when the Bills had him many years ago, we're talking to Bill source then. It said the big issue they have with Tyrod is he would hold on the ball too much, and he's not an aggressive thrower. He's a check down quarterback. You got to beat this offensive lineup. They should if they don't house this team. I'm probably being a little bit too unrealistic to think that you're completely shut down a team all 3 phases, but it just sets up to be a smoke blowout, absolute blowout.
All right. That'll do it. We will talk about it again Sunday morning. We'll update you with any other injury information, any turns that might happen between now and then. Look forward to doing it. It'll be our final regular season pregame show of the year. Myself, Adam Caplan, Jason Avant, and of course, Greg Cosell. Look forward to talking to everybody then. That's going to do it for this episode of Inside Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles Intel. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the birds.